leave, so I'm not rude if I.
No, you
we're
can
still
do a
talking.
split out.
Yeah, you gotta do whatever you need to do. No worries.
Yeah, and she's in high school, so it's like, I'll leave after 30.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to, but I have a lot of kids who live there, so.
Okay,
I have 5 kids. She's rich downtown, it's like.
It's not a competition.
Fisherman.
But if it was, I would think, or lose it.
You're winning.
I don't know what's up with this TV, so y'all are gonna have to bear with me as it like flickers and does all kinds of weird things.
You look great on the big screen.
Thanks.
You
This
do.
was taken in Italy. I was in Rome, at the, end or middle of December, so that's where I was in that photo. Again, so I run Seven Moons Astrology, and I'm also a human design analyst in training. If you don't know what that is, let's forget about it for now, because it's too much information. I went to school for engineering, and then I decided I didn't want to do that. Like I said earlier, decided to be a business consultant to use the technical skills, decided I didn't like that, use the business skills to start the business. Now I have a side job where I make most of my money, and that helps support me while I do this, which is my real passion. So I do it online, I do it in person, I do it for everyone. I'll talk if anyone will listen, so it's pretty much how it goes.
That's how we fell in love. Amelia was like, oh my God, Vic's be crazy. I'd be crazy. And
We speak the same crazy language.
Speak the same fucking crazy.
So what I was hoping to do today is give you a crash course in astrology, very simple, because in order to understand what's happening this spring with the eclipses, and that's the news that everyone's talking about, it's helpful to know a little bit of the language and the basic vocabulary. Otherwise, it's too overwhelming. And so hopefully I can break down some of that real simply, and we'll spend just a short amount of time on that. And that's where you can ask any questions you have when I say things that make sense, just so you can know how it works in your own chart. And so that that image stops being hieroglyphics and starts being something that you can actually understand when you look at it. Then we're gonna move into the recent past. We'll talk about the significance of the past couple years and the planetary alignments behind it and what they mean for each of our lives, because that's helpful context for what's coming this spring, which is pretty significant. We have a total solar eclipse moving right over Texas. These are big astrological events that do tend to manifest in noticeable events in our life. So we will talk about that. And then we'll go into our personal charts. Okay?
Sarah?
Yeah.
Just checking, are we still planning on having the GCU picnic for the eclipse? Is that still, just throwing that out there as a promotional thing? Is that still happening?
Yes.
Yeah.
So GC will be having a picnic. To
On
watch the eclipse
On Monday, the eclipse, where we can get together. and watch
During
it
the day or
During the day.
during the day.
And
during-
it's child friendly.
What time is the eclipse?
It's at about 1:30 in the afternoon. I have it in the chart here, so you
Yeah.
can look at it.
1:37.
I can't.
I know, I'm probably gonna miss it too.
It's okay. You still gotta step outside though. It's important to get that.
Yeah, I'll tell my client at 1:30, let's go outside.
You should be like, let's have a
Yeah,
session.
right.
It's a virtual session. Let's go out there.
I think the world
I would
could stop.
love it
and
if
we
my
should just
hair
get to look at it.
Yeah.
It's, doesn't happen very often, a total
Yeah.
solar eclipse.
Are you gonna take Isaac out of school?
Yeah, we're going, my friend is
Okay.
coming to town, sorry. I friend of mine is coming to town, their whole family, she and her.
Oh,
Why?
nice. Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, I think we're gonna go to Jester King.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, right party.
No, who cares?
That's for, okay.
That's just for Jane. We're not gonna.
Okay.
It's not going in.
One thing is,
Hi,
like,
Jane.
Wimberley, Wimberley, it's supposed to be longer. It's like a minute and 14 seconds over Austin area, but the further out in the hill country, it's gonna be like up to 2 to 3 minutes.
Yeah,
You'll experience it. So I think Wimberley, it's like 4 minutes.
yeah, I have to have the classes, right? Yeah.
Which breaks is already got.
I got our glasses.
I have a ton of clothes. I mean, I had this, I bought like Fredericksburg. No, it's during the day, it's better.
I've heard it's one of the like most magical experiences.
It is.
I mean, it's been going on for like ever, where everything goes silent and it's.
And the birds usually get quiet. Yeah.
Yeah, the bugs, like everything goes into this whole different circadian rhythm. And
It's in April.
Absolutely.
It's
April
April
8th.
8th, yeah.
April 8th, Monday, April 8th.
You should cancel
Blow the whole fucking day off.
Blow the day off.
It's a pretty big.
Get
It's
in or
rare.
out where we're
It's
going.
very
We're
rare.
gonna have a
Like,
picnic.
We have
the
the city of
eclipses.
Austin's already anticipating it to be like 4 times bigger than South by Southwest. less this year.
Yeah.
Because
I
of people
think
coming in
people-
from around the world and all over the US to come to our.
Right.
meetings.
I actually-
offering me so much money for Dragonfly too. For Dragonfly.
What's that?
It's my art fund.
Yeah, because
Because it
happens, yeah.
Yeah, because the cabins in the pool and it's 4 acres, middle of the city.
Yeah, I mean, we have eclipses every year. We have 4 eclipses every year, 2 of which will always be solar eclipses. But it's very rare that the alignment is so perfect that you can actually see the moon block the sun, make everything dark for a moment with the outside ring.
Yeah.
And then to also be living in the exact part of the world where you can see the path, pretty rare.
I just realized that my therapist has already rescheduled my appointment because I usually see her on Mondays. April 8th.
She was like, I can't meet with you that day.
Yeah.
Because of the eclipse.
She didn't say that's why, but that's why I just put it together, like, oh,
That's totally.
Yeah.
What time do you meet for?
See,
What time do you meet?
at 10 in the morning.
Wow, she's really taking the whole day.
Yeah, it's just taking a whole.
We should take the whole fucking.
You have to experience.
I don't know, there's a-
Too, I'm sorry, with the Texas Eclipse Music Festival happening somewhere too, there's like a big.
Yeah, it's that weekend.
We can eat,
as
chill,
well,
and
so-
go out.
It's gonna
So we're in.
blow the fucking data.
I'm still working on that land.
I'm in like a group training
Sean
from
and I have 5
11
acres up. in
or even
Vermont.
one, but I can't, like psychoanalytic,
Like, just
like
rough
training
plans.
gigs there.
There's no boundaries or anything, so it'd be like.
But I'm gonna watch it myself.
Self-help.
We
Yeah,
can FaceTime and watch it together.
Are advocates for their own happiness. That's a
Dream has
good
clear.
bit. Stagnate. It's okay.
I'm getting Scorpio vibes from you. And you.
We're all older than y'all, have to listen to our wisdom. Skip work.
I don't think there's.
If we
Oh,
could
I'll
go
be
back
back
at work, we'd skip work. Right, 20, they work so much.
You only, I mean, in fact, it's 100%, or is it 98%?
It's 100, it's 100.
It's 100, it's a fucking
100
percent,
over.
right directly over us. This shit does not happen.
I actually have a map in
Go
here
to
that
Mexico.
shows the path, so we'll get there.
next
one might be
like, what, how many?
A lot, it's like a lot of years, I think.
Decades.
Yeah, decades.
Let's find out what Marcy's thing is and go. for
I think
it.
it's like 40.
I'm sorry, I did not
It's
mean
like
to
40
hijack.
years.
It's running.
It's, I could actually calculate the next one, but it's hard. All right,
I'll call in a bomb threat.
I want to get through this, y'all, so we can talk about the eclipse, because I'm giving you the context. So, I want to bring up the history of astrology a little bit, because it can be, dicey, controversial. People don't necessarily know how to reconcile it with beliefs that they had when they were raised or that they still carry. Is it compatible with your religion? Is it demonic? Is it witchcraft? Is it any of these things? I don't look at it from that perspective. I look at it in a very scientific way. I see it as an empirical science of observation. So astrology in all of its forms have always existed across all different cultures since the dawn of time. They pop up like pyramids, right? You don't know where it's coming from, but every culture has a version of astrology. And the practice is to observe the visible planets at specific points in the sky and see what happens on Earth. That's it. But over millennia, you can start to see patterns emerge. And then from there, it's more like a psychological science. So I don't think it's any less scientific than psychology. And I don't see it as a psychic practice either. Some people would disagree with me. I think intuition certainly helps, but I don't see it as a psychic practice, and I don't claim to be psychic. I could teach you how to read this information in a way that you could have an understanding for your own life, you know, the themes that have played out in the past or might play out in the future, just based on the symbols and the archetypes that the planets have come to represent and the signs that they're in at the time that they're in those signs. An interesting fact I always like to share from the New King James Version of the Bible is that the Magi, or the wise men, were actually astrologers. So the word Magi is Greek astrologer. And so, you know, those, I like to give that information for anybody with a Christian background that finds it hard to reconcile what we're doing here. I don't use this to tell the future. That's another thing I'd like to share. I don't think that that's necessarily helpful to try to predict exactly what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. I do think it's useful to think about themes that are coming up in the future that you might already sense are coming, and help you make decisions from your own sense of self-trust. But it's usually not useful for people and calming their anxiety to say, in such and such year of your life, X, Y, and Z horrible thing is gonna happen. I don't practice in that way. So if that's what you're looking for, never come to me. All right, now that that's disclaimers are out of the way. People always ask me, how could this be so? Why, if it works, if we suspend judgment and think that it works, how could it work? I don't know. The true answer is I don't know. All I know is that the observations seem to hold. But the theory, the running theory on it is that it actually has something to do with what scientists call neutrinos, which is a subatomic particle that the sun emits. And the planets passing through in their orbits have an influence on that stream of information. And that somehow that interacts with our DNA and has a result on Earth, the subtle way that it manipulates mass and matter. Who's to say? I'm not trying to prove it. That's just what they're saying.
That's what we had.
Yeah, I found that picture online. So it showed you this. This is just the basics of an astrology chart. So in Whole House Hellenistic astrology, which dates back to about 2000 years ago, the tropical zodiac will always start at Aries. This is the spring equinox. So it's the first sign of the zodiac here, Aries. And from there it proceeds counterclockwise: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sag, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. And each of those signs is associated with a planet, which we call the ruling planet, and a house, which corresponds to the same themes as those planet and as that planet and sign. So Aries is ruled by Mars. This is Mars, and it has to do with the first house. So what is Aries about? Me, myself, and I. What I want, my goals, my ambitions, my body, my needs, and my drive, the actions that I take. It's the first sign of consciousness because it's the first sign. So it's about survival, it's about adaptability, taking risks, and pioneering unknown territories. It's about newness and taking action. So Mars represents all those same things. Taurus is associated with our possessions, because once you have yourself taken care of, the next thing is your material plane and security. So that's how we move on to Taurus, which is about money and income and food and resources and things that we own.
That's the third one?
That's the second one. And that's ruled by Venus in the second house. So the second house in astrology is always going to represent money, income, resources, my material world. Yes.
So just to clarify, my chart, my first house will not look like that.
No, it will not. So this is what we would call the native zodiac, which always starts at Aries.
Okay.
But this is the rising sign. So the first house represents the section of the sky that is rising on the eastern horizon at the time of birth. So where the sun normally rises, whatever section of sky is there at 1:30 when you're born in the morning, let's say. If that is Gemini, that's what we call Gemini, that 30-degree section of sky, that's your rising sign. And that sets the first house. So then Gemini would be the first house. So that's, if you haven't captured that, don't worry about that too much. That's just the basics. So there are 4 different elements that we can categorize the signs into, and astrologically we call those the triplicities. So there's fire, air, earth, and water. Fire signs are enthusiastic, passionate, bold. They're about change and transformation because fire changes things. They have a lot of energy and they have a lot of drive. Earth, very practical, productive, wants to make sure things are taken care of, is focused on stability. Water signs are emotional, intuitive. They're about people. They're about creativity and imagination. Air signs are about communicating ideas, thinking, writing, analyzing, being curious, sharing information. So these are fire signs, earth signs, air signs, water signs. We're all a combination of all of these. Now, we can categorize the signs even further by their quadruplicities, another word for that being modalities. So this has to do with the season in which you were born. So cardinal signs are signs that start a season. So the start of spring, the start of summer, the start of fall, the start of winter. Those signs would be Aries starts spring, Cancer starts summer, fall is Libra, Capricorn. starts winter. Cardinal signs are about responding to problems. They solve problems. These are the people that you need in a crisis. Because they're the ones that can handle emergencies. Because they're all about taking action. And they're very solution oriented. Fixed signs are about the steady middle of a season. Okay, so the middle of spring, the middle of summer, the middle of fall, the middle of winter, that's Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. These signs don't love change. They want to keep things stable. But these are the people you can rely on. They're very committed. They can be stubborn. I looked at my fixed sign. Okay, so mutable.
Look at her too.
Yeah, we all have Scorpios, so Scorpios, we got a lot of Scorpios going on here. I'm gonna say Scorpios are fixed water, okay? Fixed water like ice. Emotions that get stuck. So you really get moved by something, man, are you on it? Like if you're upset, you're unnerved by something, it's very hard to let those emotions go and they'll rack it inside of you for a long time. That could be the case if you have a lot of Scorpio energy. Mutable signs are about when seasons are changing, transitioning to another one. So that's Gemini, Virgo, Sag, and Pisces. And these signs are very good at adapting and changing and going with the flow. We good? Okay. Polarities, this is not too important to focus on, but this just categorizes signs as masculine and feminine or positive and negative. It's not about gender. It's just about outwardness or inwardness of energy. Okay, now here's what's going to get a little more complicated. And this is the information that could be helpful for you when starting to think about the eclipses and how they're going to affect your life this spring. And it's about understanding how to read time in a chart. Because an astrology chart is just a snapshot of time. It takes 3D space and it folds it into a 2D map. So the ascendant or the first house, we already talked about that. That's the rising sign. So that's the section of the sky that's rising on the eastern horizon. The DS, that's the descendant. It's the setting section of the sky where the sun sets. The midheaven is the MC. This is directly above you. For lack of a, this is not exactly true, but for our purposes here, it's high noon in the sky above your head. And then the IC would be like all the way below you on the other side of the earth. So that's how to orient with the clock of time. And this rising sign is going to change every hour or two as the earth spins, because the section that's rising on the sky is going to be different as we're turning. And the sun is going to move signs about every 30 days because it's in a given sign for a month. So Pisces season, we're in the middle of Pisces season right now, 15 degrees Pisces, we're dead in the center of Pisces. A month from now, we'll be in the middle of Aries and the sun will move through like this. So from there, you can see where all the other planets are, depending on the time of year. The moon changes every 2.5 days. So this is the thing that you might check a couple times a week to understand where the moon is and how that's influencing how you feel. Because the moon is mood, emotion, and the primary focus of your energy for that 2 or 3 day period. So that one's going to move around all 12 signs in about a month. So that's transits. When you get your horoscope, that's what they're talking about. They're interpreting transits against your natal chart and how they affect you. So here's an example. This is my chart on the inside ring. So I'm Gemini rising, Sag, Sun, Moon, and Libra. And here's right now, the chart we just looked at against my chart. So the sun is in middle of Pisces, the moon is in Capricorn, and Virgo is rising at about 7 p.m. So that's just overlaid on my chart. So that would be what it looked like if you were to do yours. You would have the sun is in Pisces season, which is in your 4th house.
Yeah, what does that mean?
So it means that you're thinking about redecorating, which you are with your office.
Wait, I'm
Because the
sorry.
4th house is about home, place of living. Things
These
that-
charts that we printed, are they for right now in our lives? or
The
just-
charts that you printed are your natal charts, so they apply forever for this life. And then when you overlay transits on top of them, so if you were to go online, you could pull transits against this chart. And Pisces season would be a different section for everybody. So Pisces is your 4th house. Pisces is your 11th house. Pisces is your 6th house, 10th house. 12th house. Third house, and then you said you were what rising? Not sure.
Why is this so fucking me up?
Cause it
Third
looks
house?
third house, cause your rising is your first house, 1, 2.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So basically, that's just how you begin to understand how what's happening right now is related to your natal chart. So for me, as an example, March, I'm so happy. Always. I'm like, oh, but this nest is not fun again. So you're doing that now? Oh, yeah, like crazy. Putting their yard, like everything. All right, now we're gonna get into good stuff. If that didn't make sense, that's okay. This stuff takes a long time to kind of
What
digest.
does it mean if Pisces is in?
In the 10th house. So the 10th house is, so you're gonna have.
How does that relate to what you just said? I don't understand.
So once you begin to understand what the houses mean, and I have that later on in the chart or in the slides, you can begin to layer the interpretation of the planets against the house that it's traveling through. So the planet is the what, the sign is the how, and the house is the where. So an example of that would be the sun and Mercury right now are very close together. This is the sun, this is Mercury. This is true for everybody because this is happening right now in the sky. The sun and Mercury are close together in the sign of Pisces. For Gemini rising, which you and I both are, this is the 10th house of our natal chart. The 10th house has to do with the career, the public reputation, what we're known for, sense of purpose, leadership, authority, what we're doing out in the world. That's what the 10th house represents. So when the sun and Mercury come together in the 10th house, it typically means that we are focusing on something related to career very heavily that may have to do with mercurial topics, talking, sharing information, educating, learning, studying, working with other people, and that is being illuminated by the sun. So there's some primary focus on that. So what happened to me today? I got my raise at work. And that's an example of that. So 10th house activities are spotlighted for Gemini rising right now. But that's because it's Pisces season. Pisces is different for everybody else. So for you, Pisces is the 4th house. The 4th house is home, property, real estate, things that you own, property that you manage, the family. So during Pisces season, your family came to visit. And you've been thinking, Mercury, about redecorating 4th house, a place that you own, and signing new paperwork for that 4th house for your office. So that you begin to see how what you're focusing on is directly related to the transits.
Did something magical happen in your job?
Something magical. Yeah, what's going on for you in your career?
My career?
Yeah.
Like, in general?
Anything special going on this month?
I just moved into a new work studio.
Okay.
And I've been getting calls for new projects.
Okay, so you're being spotlighted in your career. So that's how, and calls actually, interestingly enough, is Mercury. It's Mercury. So, because Mercury is about the exchange of information, so it gets very literal. It can get very, very literal. It's not to say that you aren't doing other things with your career at the rest of the year, because of course you are. It's just that there's some kind of bigger focus on that during Pisces season for all Gemini rising. Okay, so again, the planet is the what, the sign is the how, and the house is the where. Where in my life is this thing occurring? Okay. All right, let's talk about what's happening this year, the past couple years, the next couple years, all of the weirdness that's going on, because most people can feel it.
So weird.
It's been very weird. There's a lot of changing cycles going on.
The Aquarius here.
It's the, yeah, so here's where it's gonna get juicy. So changing cycles, there's just a lot of change in the background energy all coming up in the next few years. And it actually began in about 2020 is when this really started kicking off. And of course, the pandemic was related to that. Let's talk about the United States and what's going on in the United States. The US has a natal chart too, for when it was founded in 1776. We cast a chart that represents the birth of the United States. And the United States has placements just like the rest of us. And it's Pluto is in Capricorn. And we just had the United States Pluto return. And that came exact in 2022. This is a long-term process. But basically, the cycle of Pluto is about 250 years long. And Pluto is related to death and rebirth and ultimate transformation. It builds things up and it destroys them. It's the principle of evolution. And so no empire in recorded history has ever lasted longer than a full Pluto cycle. The longest one that we know of is the Roman Empire, and during the Roman Empire's Pluto return, the empire fell. That's not to say that the US is falling and it's going to disappear. Rome still exists, but in a very different way. And so the US is going through a similar transformation. And you can really see how that began with the pandemic, when all of the corruption and issues began to erupt to the surface. Now, the United States chart actually has Uranus and Gemini as well. And every time that the US goes through what we call a Uranus return, which is about every 84 years, there is a significant war. So the first one was the Revolutionary War. The second one was the Civil War. And the third time that Uranus returned to Gemini, it was the US's involvement in World War II. And so in 2027, Uranus will again return to Gemini. It's in Taurus right now. In a few more years, it'll make its way to Gemini. And so most astrologers are predicting that there will be some significant involvement of the US in a bigger, larger war in some way. Now, we've been involved in wars at other times than besides just when Uranus is in Gemini, including right now in our activity involving in the war, but you can see how the stage is set for that to escalate. And 2027 would be a time where every single time it's happened before, these kinds of patterns have happened. So that's how astrology works. You use the past to kind of project into the future. If every time Uranus is in Gemini, the US is involved in a major war that changes its identity, safe to say that in 2027, when this happens again, something like that can occur. So that's an explanation for what you're seeing kind of happen in our country right now. The age of Aquarius is also something that we're kind of in the blending period of now. So the ages are very long periods of time, like 2,500 year cycles. And, you know, there's a lot of arguments about when they start and when they end. To me, that's not important. To me, it's important to focus on what it means about society. So we were just in the age of Pisces around the beginning of the story of Christ. So that 2,000-year period starting at the birth of Christ marks the beginning of the age of Pisces in my mind. And so Pisces, the energy of Pisces is really associated with everything that Christ taught: sacrifice, forgiveness, unconditional love. It's also related to medicine and healing, and we've had huge advancements in medicine and healing in that same span of time. It was about compassion, right? Ultimately, I mean, you might say to me, we're not a very compassionate society, and I agree with you. But compared to the age of Aries, when everyone was killing each other for sport on stage, and it was all about conquest and pioneering, I would say we're a little bit more friendly now than we were then. So next, we're moving into the age of Aquarius, which is really marked by Pluto entering Aquarius now for the next 20 years. And Saturn and Neptune moving into Aries is really going to change society, where no more is it about spirituality and what you believe and religion and taking care of everybody all the time. It's an individual focused energy that is rooted in technology and personal freedom and revolution. And so it's the digital era. Technology is associated with Aquarius. So it's really the age of the future. And collectivism is another principle that will come through as well. If you're familiar with human design, is anybody?
Only from me.
Okay. I won't share too much about that then. So let's talk about the recent past. Starting in January of 2020, we all know what happened. Saturn conjoined Pluto. This is a very rare alignment that doesn't happen very often, and it occurred in Capricorn. When Saturn's the principle of challenges, endings, death, struggle, illness, and structures, restructuring government, restructuring business, restructuring the foundations of our life. Pluto is the death and rebirth and evolution. We talked about that already. When they come together, it creates calamity in the form of a world pandemic that asked us all to evaluate what we had been doing in our lives for perhaps the past 20 years and say, okay, something's off here. I need to make a change, a significant change in the structure of my life. So we all began, the pandemic influenced us that way. And that's what that alignment represents. In December of 2020, so about a year later, we get the great conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter now in Aquarius. Now, Saturn is again about the structure of our lives. Jupiter is the benefic planet that brings us new opportunities and aspirations for the future. And Aquarius is, again, technology, innovation in the future. So first we go, something's not right about the past 20 years. I need to change the structure. And then about a year later, we go, okay, I have an idea about what I want the future to look like. But then in 2021, we hit a roadblock, and the roadblock was Saturn squaring Uranus in Taurus, which is basically an argument between the past and the future. So some of us changed too many things too quickly, and then we had to clean up the mess. Some of us didn't change things fast enough, and we were bogged down by old limiting things. So it was this push and pull between where I feel I need to liberate myself and where I feel I need to keep things stable and secure. So there was an argument there that usually most people I talked to did not find 2021 to be a pleasant year. 2022, Jupiter and Neptune conjunct in Pisces. For some of us, this was really hopeful, dreamy, imaginative time, depending on your chart. And for others of us, this was a year full of grief, loss, and confusion, uncertainty. So it really depends on your unique chart. That one could go either way. But now that brings us to this spring where we have, the spring of last year, where Saturn entered Pisces, which is really a washing away of all the old. So we finally got to the point where we're done with everything we had originally set out to eliminate here in 2020. And now we need to figure out how to move forward. And that's what this spring is all about. So the eclipses this year and the conjunction of Jupiter Uranus all happening March, April this year is really a slingshot forward into a new direction. It's a breakthrough. It's positive in nature for most people. And if it feels like a negative, usually it's disguised. There could be some kind of eruption or surprise that brings in an opportunity later down the road.
Can I tell you about this year?
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
This was important as an environmental scientist in Copenhagen. This is gonna sound so nerdy to some people. But this is a dual emergent year for the North American cicada.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I heard that.
And let me tell you why this is significant, because I'm an environmental scientist, okay, so Texas has experienced a lot of serious, okay? But one of the things is our animals have been on a steady decline. And that reemergence begins with cicada, because it's dual emergence year. So in Texas, don't kill them. You're gonna see a lot more copperheads this fall, copperhead snakes. But what that is going to do is make an influx of owls in our sky, which is going to solve a lot of problems for regenerative agriculture in all of North America. It's going to be extremely important. So for the life cycle, this is the most important life cycle in North America, is a dual emergence year. And the last time that this happened, in terms of the food cycle, is 1804.
And that is so fast. Yeah, when both types of cicadas come out at one time. And that's so fascinating because astrology was one of the original uses of it was for planting and harvesting and understanding that. And so Taurus, the sign where that Jupiter Uranus conjunction is happening, is the sign of nature and the land and the fertility of the land and the balance of nature. And so Jupiter meaning a positive, Uranus breakthrough, change, eruption, that sort of
My
thing.
challenge to everyone in saying that is don't
Don't kill them.
kill fucking wildlife, please.
Do not kill the wildlife.
It's this year, and then the last time we had it was 1804.
1804.
Yes, was the last dual emergence year.
What month is that gonna start?
They're about to start waking up probably April. And then they will continue waking up and crawling out until October. The new copperhead snakes are gonna be born, and the rattlesnakes, and these are important, these both eat the cicada. They're going to be born in July and September.
I have to keep my house cat safe. She goes outside.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm kind of fascinated on this.
Yeah,
So,
it's
I mean, these are some random things that Ra doesn't know, it's pretty go in my brain. Okay, two questions or Mark to fact check. So cicadas, do they sing looking for their one mate and then they go back in, like?
But not-
Yes.
They wait or,
They're not singing really, well, I mean, yes, they're singing to mate, but you also have to remember that these are two different species. There's a 13-year cicada and a 17-year cicada. And then you have the one you see every year, the green one that you're familiar with. So there's actually three kinds, but that one comes out every year.
okay,
Still dual emergence. The songs mean a lot of things.
okay,
And
we can
there's,
geek out on that.
yeah, we
in
can
a
geek out on
minute
that later.
Oh, that's so
And then
fascinating.
also, random other thing, rattlesnakes, are they not evolving without the rattlers?
No, that's a myth. They just pop out like that. It's random.
So they still have.
So they're
People
People
still.
are, every now and then you'll see a rattlesnake without rattling, oh, they're evolving to drop their, it's not true. It's a random occurrence, random common gene mutation, like someone having club.
Okay.
It's
Well,
called,
thank you for clarifying that.
We can get
We'll
into-
on that later, yep.
well, reptiles are my
Geek
jam.
on that later.
Yeah,
These are bugs and reptiles are my thing.
this is a good place to live, with bugs and reptiles.
I know I'm always, I'm animals, I would love to just live in swamps.
Not me,
And like ride a gator and be like, who wants some possum stew? Like that, I'm into that, like that's, I've made it.
Smart girl.
Yes, I worked as an exotic chef for a long time.
Wow.
I think I see a collab coming here.
Did it. I no longer eat mammals actually. Sounds just.
That's what I was thinking about, but you.
I don't eat mammals anymore. You're like, I heard you don't eat mammals, you better stop. They have a pouch too, it's sick. They're so awesome.
Sorry, I did not mean to think you of that.
Wild.
No, so that's why I've been like nerding out on the chart just because of,
eat mammals, but you eat other.
I'll eat chicken and chickens are reptiles. So. That's true. Birds are
now as reptiles?
Birds are reptiles, avian reptiles.
Avian reptiles, yeah.
Say,
Avian.
Do you
first checking.
I'll eat birds
Turkey.
and fish. I love turkey. Yeah, I'll get into my whole homesteading thing that I need to.
I think we
into
need
it.
a session.
Oh, do you have farm?
I build little homesteads.
Do you ever dream of going?
I will,
Can we do like a tour of the homestead?
once it gets going. I can show you some of the other homesteads I have.
That's badass.
How many homesteads?
Look.
That's what being
I
a
have
Taurus
three
rising
names.
is, by the
I
way.
have.
Having multiple
Everything
homesteads.
views on taking care of the planet. I will shame you, like, I haven't done it yet, but I shame people for like too much single-use plastic and all that. I'm not saying don't be perfect. Like, or be perfect, you can't. But I have extreme views on protecting the earth, like,
That's
my
Aquarius. and
Bible
Taurus
is
combined.
braiding sweetgrass. I feel deeply connected. I feel like I'm very lucky since I've got dynasty American shit. And I've already land backed my bequeathment property already. So like, I'm very into protecting the earth, like
So you're training
obsessively,
your kids to like train.
obsessively, yes. Like I have
Have you,
passionate views on regenerative micro agriculture movements.
you grow your own veggies?
I will, yeah,
Do you eat eggs?
yes,
I only eat the regenerative side. They taste so much better.
you have to eat eggs, in my opinion, unless you're vegetarian or vegan, that's your choice. I mean, that's reasons for that, but they're good for you.
What are the regenerative kind, what?
Do you want to explain regenerative agriculture?
Regenerative agriculture is where you don't, first of all, you don't plant crops in a monoculture anymore, so you know Amarillo, you know what's going on.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm so in the astro world right now. Oh my god.
This is astrology, this is Aquarius ass astrology.
Yeah, this is
This is
Aquarius
Earth
combined with
bullshit.
Taurus.
Okay. So regenerative agriculture is where you feed the soil first. So that's important for multiple reasons. It grows with healthier food
Mhm.
and you sequester the most carbon in the soil. People are like, oh, the transpiration of trees. Well, no, it's dirty. But it's the soil. And if we're not feeding the soil, we're killing ourselves.
Mhm.
It's exceedingly important to eat from healthy soil.
Permaculture, like.
It's permaculture and regenerative agriculture, yes.
Mhm.
So permaculture would be if you just had a completely balanced ecosystem in your yard and exclusively.
closed
from that.
cycle.
Yes, a closed cycle that you control, and you can add plants as needed. Regenerative agriculture is where it's for a broader scale, but you use practices, you cut out all of the chemicals, first of all. You have to plant roots that feed the soil, like legumes cycling, so all legumes are what's called a nitrogen fixers. So you plant those in a fallow field, and next year you grow what I like to call chaos gardening. So you're like, in this side, we're just gonna throw seeds at random and you grow things that work together. So Native Americans did the practice of the Three Sisters method, which is corn stalk, beans, and squash. And I think everybody's kind of familiar with that now. Is that a thing? Everybody's familiar with it? Okay. So that's a regenerative agriculture, and it's planted to the moon cycle. So when the moon is here, you plant the corn, and the moon is here, you plant the beans, and the moon is here, and squash. So that you get food for 9 months out of a tiny patch. And so that's what we need to go back to, because we poisoned our soil with the way that we agriculture right now, as it stands, if we keep going the way that we're going to have 57 harvests before mass American famine.
So that's, yeah, so that is related also to, part of what I was mentioning, human design and the changing of cycles, is there is a lot of difficult things coming in the future. Because the cross of planning, which describes the background frequency of energy that we've had for the last several hundred years, basically is correlated with the industrial age and like the agreement we have in society for everyone to work for everyone else. You know, I'll do the medicine, you'll do the farming, and somebody's gonna do the law, and somebody's gonna make sure the train is running, and all of that is breaking down.
Yes.
There's a collective energy that supports society being structured in that way, and that's changing in 2027 to an energy that's much more individual. And so, you know, labor crisis, food crisis, all of these things are a potential. The outcome is going to be a society that is hopefully very idealistic and in harmony with nature, but it's not going to happen quickly, and the destruction has to happen first. And really, it's about moving from an age of, you know, I'll help you if you help me, to an age of self-empowerment. So there's a big shift there, breaking down of traditional forms of marriage, all the ways that society is changing, people are changing, is marked by the shift in these energies. So I think paying attention to this stuff now more than ever is important, so that you know how to make the best decisions for yourself, because everything's gonna be changing. It's not like we're gonna wake up one day in 2027 and everything will be different. It's just that things are becoming.
People, I'm gonna create myself, because nobody's doing it, a
Right.
micro local food movement. Where where it's perfectly possible to just eat food that's produced very close to you. We need to eat food that's grown within 5 miles of us, animals and plants.
And as an Aquarius, that you play a really important role in the shift into the age of Aquarius, because the end goal is all about that grassroots society and working in local communities like that.
Reciprocity with the other.
Yeah.
We have to
Yeah.
do it.
Okay, so the astrology of eclipses, which we've got coming March 25th and April 8th. So the eclipses are related to the North and South node. The nodes are not planets in the sky, they are simply calculations. They're calculations that astronomers use as well to predict where in the sky and when eclipses will occur. So right now we have the North Node in Aries. So the total solar eclipse on April 8th is in the sign of Aries. And the eclipse on March 25th is a lunar eclipse, and that's occurring in the sign of Libra. So I put these diagrams here because I think it's helpful to visualize, you know, what exactly is an eclipse. A lunar eclipse is a full moon, like any other full moon, except for it's aligned in a particular way so that the Earth will cast a shadow on the moon, because it's kind of in between the sun and the moon at just the right angle. So when you get a total lunar eclipse, it ends up looking like this red one here, where the moon looks red, and we call that a blood moon. So you'll hear that, you know, every once in a while we get a blood moon. It looks red because that's the Earth's shadow overlaid on the moon. On March 25th, it's a penumbral eclipse, so it's not quite aligned. It's going to be like out here in relation to the Earth, so it'll be kind of a partial shadow like this one. So we've got, this is the astrology chart for the eclipse that we have. So this is March 25th, and in Austin, Texas, it'll be about 2 a.m. when hopefully we're all asleep. The Libra eclipse cycle with the South Node is all about releasing, transcending, and moving on from issues related to Libra. The sign of Libra is all about partnerships, relationships, what's fair to you and I, reciprocity, peace in our lives, balance in our lives, fairness and justice. Okay, so something about the past, let's call it 9 years, we've learned to be, let's maybe say, too peaceable. or not fair to ourselves, or in the wrong relationships, or not being assertive enough. There is a pattern that each of us needs to release with the eclipse cycle having the South Node in Libra, where it's about transcending issues in relationships. It's not just romantic relationships, it's also business partnerships, friendships. So you could probably notice starting in summer of last year, there's been major shifting in relationships, changing of business deals, breakups and makeups, divorces and deaths, and all kinds of changing in relationship structure. This is really, this particular eclipse, and Jane has some homework for all of us about what we can do to prepare for these types of things, is to be thinking about what's out of balance in your life and what you're still holding on to. Maybe it's old resentments about conflicts that happened in the past, or people that have betrayed you. Resentment is a big topic when it comes to Libra, because Libra has a habit of swallowing its own desires and needs to be fair and agreeable to everybody else, and to go along with everybody else, with what everybody else wants. And we need that peacemaker in society, but right now the call of the time is the North Node in Aries. So the exact opposite energy. Be more assertive, go after what you want, be more independent, get out of codependent situations. And so this full moon eclipse happening on March 25th is very much so about that. Now it's in aspect to Venus and Jupiter by these green lines here in what's called a yod or finger of God. The South Node, what we're letting go of, which is an excess of Libra energy, being too nice, being too fair, blah, blah, blah. And Jupiter in Taurus and Venus in Pisces. So what this could look like is we finally get it, and it's very easy to let go of the things that we need to let go of, and it results in big wins for us materially and romantically or professionally. And that's because Jupiter and Venus are the benefic planets that bring good things. The other thing this could mean is that it's maybe difficult to do and kind of uncomfortable to do and feels like a loss or a big surrender that's challenging. But if you're able to do it, it still brings you the good things, the Jupiter and Venus. So more beauty and peace in your life, more money or material security, that kind of thing. So that's what that eclipse is about on the 25th. And so Jane really wants you to think about focusing on balancing between the gifts and the shadows of Libra. So another thing about Libra is it can be too indecisive, right? So this is really more of a time to knock that off and to be more decisive, to take more
I
direct
love my
action.
hell yeses and I love my fuck nos.
There you
and
go.
Everything else in between, yes, I'm indecisive as fuck.
Yeah.
Well, this is the time to figure out how to take the right risks and right actions, which brings me to the next eclipse that we all want to talk about, which is the one on April 8th. This is the big one. This is the big one. This is the solar. So this diagram, once it stops looking blurry, will be helpful, because the solar eclipses, they're just new moons. They're new moons like every other, except the moon will be aligned so perfectly with the sun that it will totally block out the sun for a few minutes. It's a total solar eclipse. So like I said, they happen every year. Sometimes they're more annular, so it's like kind of too far away, and so it doesn't fill the whole thing, or it's partial, it's not quite aligned. This is total, meaning it's stronger, both astrologically and stronger astrologically. So it's right, it's perfectly aligned this time.
Get your rainwaters outside.
Get your rainwaters
What
outside.
does that mean? Grow really good gardens, and that's actually true.
What else should we do on that day? What else?
Are we gonna plant something? Doesn't Jane want us to?
Jane, yeah, she included a little video that we can play where she shares what she wants.
What do you
us to
think we should do?
We should plant a tree.
I don't operate like that. My personal opinion is that you just watch what happens and take note of it. So my opinion is observe what occurs in your life consciously and with awareness. But if you're gardening, then it's a good time to plant.
It's good intentions, really the water that you charge with the eclipse moon or eclipse sun.
It's not gonna, what if it doesn't rain?
Get some rainwater between now and then.
I
And if
tend
you
to
need some, I have a giant 25-gallon.
She's ready.
Yeah.
Do whatever we want.
We should be catching rainwater anyway, all of you, please.
For what?
We're in a desertification,
For what?
but just trust me.
What do you do with the water?
You just keep it forever.
I tend to think that, traditional astrology would say that it's best not to set a ton of intentions on an eclipse. Because eclipses were actually seen as bad omens. Now take that aside, because that's not really accurate. Something about the energy is eclipse, literally. So if you set an intention on the new moon, sure, it's gonna come to pass, because it's a very strong new moon. But something about it is eclipsed, and you can't stop that. So it will probably not go exactly as you imagine, and it will be kind of subject to fate and, so if you have something like really important to you, save it for a different new moon. And if you really want to just say, I want this at any cost, whatever it's going to take to get me there, then maybe set your intentions on this eclipse. This is the path of the eclipse. And so we're very lucky here in Texas because it's going to go right over us. But other parts of the globe, people living in other countries, the eclipse still affects them astrologically, but it is strongest over the US, and this eclipse will mean something significant probably for the US election. It will mean something very significant for the country as a whole because it's flying right over us. So this is the chart of the eclipse. It's at 19 degrees Aries. So remember I was talking about stelliums earlier. This is when all the planets kind of gang up in one sign together. So you have a stellium and you were born under one of these periods of time. So was I. It's all happening in Aries. So it's sun and moon together. That's the new moon. It's with the north node. So it's an eclipse. And it's also immediately conjunct Chiron, which I think is the most significant aspect about this particular eclipse, because Chiron is about our deep wounds it's an asteroid, first of all, I should say it's an asteroid. Yeah, it's one of the larger asteroids sitting between Jupiter and Saturn, I think it is. I could be wrong about that, so.
At 19 degrees?
Yeah, it's at 19 degrees Aries. And Chiron represents, or has been seen to represent, wounds in ourselves that go very deep, that we have a hard time ever really resolving. But the new moon in Aries gives us an opportunity to make decisions in a new way, to affirm a sense of independence, confidence, taking appropriate new risks, a fresh start, a time for planting, a time for moving in a new direction, brings new opportunities, ambitions, and drive. And it's a chance to make decisions in a totally different way than we ever have before. And it will be a very defining period of time, although it may feel challenging because Mars and Saturn, the two malefics, are also in conjunction at the same time, which means something about this feels like there's a sacrifice involved in order to do it. And that might feel like exhaustion, that might feel like grief, that might feel like confusion. But ultimately it is worth it because shortly after this, and I'm going to move forward real quick. Shortly after this, on April 20th, we have Jupiter and Taurus in conjunction on April 20th. Yeah, I said that. So this is the big breakthrough that we were talking about earlier. And when Jupiter and Uranus come together, that only happens every 15 years or so. Jupiter, big, Uranus, change. Those are the key words. So there's a big change coming. Breakthrough, insight, revelation, rebellion, change of character, change of belief, change of monetary circumstances, change of who you think you are and what you're doing in your life. Okay, it could be a surprise, could be planned, could be unexpected, could be chaotic, could be a shock, could feel disruptive, could feel liberating. It could be any of those things. But the thing about Uranus is when it's involved, I can't tell you exactly what it's going to be because Uranus literally represents the unexpected, but there is some kind of breakthrough coming by the end of April as well. So a breakthrough of double emergence in nature with the cicadas. But now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about where is this happening in your chart. Okay. So you want to look to your chart and you want to see which houses are Aries, Libra, and Taurus. Aries, Libra, and Taurus. Okay. Wherever you see Libra, that's March 25th, the lunar eclipse.
A Libra by number? So look for what?
Okay, here, hold on. Let me go to that other one.
Libra.
Here.
Libra,
And then Taurus.
okay. Taurus.
Yeah, so Libra, this is where your lunar eclipse is happening.
That's Libra, Aries, Taurus, Taurus, Aries, Libra, so those three.
Yep,
This one.
yes. So this is March 25th.
Is this supposed to mean something?
Yeah, I'll tell you what it means in a minute.
Like, look at what, where it is. and
The
then-
house, yeah. So for you, Libra, the March 25th eclipse is the 5th house. The April 8th total solar eclipse is the 11th house. And the Taurus Jupiter Uranus conjunction is your 12th house. Now, I'll tell you what that means, so you can figure out what all of that is, how to predict what it will mean for you. That is gonna be right here. When that stops. Oh.
But it closed out, it closed out.
Yeah.
Again, so
Okay.
Libra's gonna be
So
what?
March 25th is the lunar eclipse in Libra. So wherever Libra is in your chart, mark March 25th, because that eclipse affects that area of your chart.
Okay.
It's 5th house,
March, wait, why March?
because that's when the lunar eclipse is.
Oh, the lunar.
That's the lunar.
So what number is it? 11?
11.
Yeah, I mean 11.
Yes, so that eclipse is about resolving issues related to friend groups, related to associations, communities, the wrong people in your life, the right people in your life. It also has to do with gains and rewards, so lots of money coming through this potential. That's an easier house to have in, by the way.
Wait, what? I just got confused.
I got my ninth house.
Ninth house is Libra for you.
Ninth house is Libra. for
Okay,
me.
so the March 25th eclipse
Uh-huh,
is ninth house topics for you.
okay,
So it's about letting go of issues of resentment or working to establish more peace in your life, or letting go of relationships that no longer serve you, related to ninth house topics: faith, belief, travel, exploration, adventure, legal issues. The ninth house has to do with like lawyers, contracts, topics related to battles over those things. The next one is April 8th, the total solar eclipse in Aries. So look to see which house is Aries in your chart, which is the one that looks like the horns. So that's gonna be your 11th house.
yes.
That's gonna be your first house, very important for you. 6, important for your work and health.
We're gonna have a planet there.
That's no big deal.
Okay, so third,
4th in whole sign. Home where you live and your issues related to family
and this is,
and emotional security. This
and
is
this
the
is
big
still on the
eclipse.
March 25th.
No, this is April.
This is 8, okay.
Okay, and then Taurus, is this that one?
5th house, romance, dating, sex, entrepreneurship, the business that you
And
run.
that's when?
April 8th,
The big one.
the big one. So what does that eclipse want you to do? Be less codependent, take new risks, get decisive. Be a healthy degree of selfishness, care less what other people think, move forward in a new direction, have a fresh start. So for you, fresh start romantically and professionally.
So wait until April.
You don't have to wait until April, it's just that
Right.
life is going to emphasize that in some way at that time.
Mm.
And so for you, this is like a whole new chapter in your life. Whole new chapter in your life where you, because it's your first house, like a new sense of identity. Fresh start where you're letting go of everything old. That's so really important to think about who doesn't belong in the next chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then on April 20th,
April 20th.
April 20th is the conjunction of Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus. So you look to see where Taurus is in your chart, which should be right next to Aries. And this is where you're having some kind of breakthrough, change, or revelation. So 12th house, revelation about the past. Or revelation about your inner world. Or change in some way.
When is this one?
April 20th. It's revelation related to your work, change in your work or health, breakthrough in your health or work. Because the sixth house has to do with your work and your health and your routines and your habits.
Then you should all come to the party on April 20th.
And have a big breakthrough.
You actually know if you come to these parties, they're magical.
No, they said. And we're going to, and they're going to, your charter. I've been to get some enchanted. It's just like art, I think my way.
Yeah, fascinating.
Huge.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So next one's
So
on
it's
nine.
gonna be about 21 days, it'll affect the whole life. It's like 11.
Yeah.
And so whatever you run, whatever you're so tired, I'm just like.
It's the bad habits.
So you want to, okay, so I.
No, it isn't.
It's there. That's great, so then I.
December 9th.
So that's it, end of summer, yeah.
And then later.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
And it will be so out. She's gonna buy this. But maybe there's. So it's like situation. But it's also, all you have to. I'm putting my lot. Sorry.
So here's how you see this. So it's Jupiter and Uranus coming together here. Jupiter rules in your chart Pisces, the 11th house, so. This is how it's. And then Sagittarius, which is starting announcements, slides, walking away and big meaning on your husband's.
Doing what I always wanted to.
They're just
do.
random.
We're not creating major. career.
And then I was going to ask that, why? But Uranus now.
It's the most business trip we've ever had, I'm kind of geeky.
Uranus.
Fuck out.
Uranus is there.
They all make red power instead. It's like lower.
Gotta do a good job.
That was a fresh blueberry. So.
Wait, we're not
they're
done,
not
right?
so.
I mean, we can keep going, but that's basically it.
Okay, so the last one you're up is at Taurus.
Yeah, that's this one.
And so mine's in my 5th house.
Big breakthrough, creatively, romantically, or with your business.
Is that not Black and Rowan? Hold on. I think so, yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Okay. I don't like breaking through against shit that feels like it's holding you down in your personal identity, creatively or romantically, and doing it the wrong way. And so you'll have some kind of big revelation or insight there that should be positive in nature, since it's the good house, happening in April.
So I should definitely be a writer and abandon this structured job.
You wanna be a writer?
I want to be a writer. There you go. Okay.
Or you wanna write movies?
I did. This is the first time I ever tried.
I mean, this is a time to take the risk, to have a fresh start and to.
Hell,
for you in
yeah.
particular, Uranus represents your career. It's your 10th house, so it's a change in career or identity out in the world.
I told you, what did I fucking tell you yesterday?
Uranus,
Yes.
for her, because Uranus is tied to Aquarius. So
Uranus is.
Where the fuck is my Uranus? So Uranus is about money. Because it was Aquarius, and that's the 2nd house in the whole sun chart. So it's about money, a change in money.
Okay.
What's the Uranus then again? Aquarius. So
Oh, yeah, we've
you,
done-
it's about,
Gone all the way through, it's really.
also this is, with your
Yeah.
kids.
I'm geeking out on it.
Children.
Totally.
Middle school stuff. Yeah, a breakthrough or change professionally. Your business is kind of like entrepreneurship. And that's a big.
It's very, very.
Or
That's
romantically on set.
little, blueberries, the organic blueberries, I got.
Yeah, that's one of the things that it will do. And then it will also go in your.
Oh my
your
God,
work, your
your notes.
what you do.
You know what I was watching you take
And then it's going.
Instead of, so wait, is your turn on the other
Recipe
side?
I use, it's like Wyoming business or.
Applesauce,
Any of
yeah.
those activities.
Yep.
Do that.
It doesn't work real well with that cake flour.
No, she's gonna be like the manager's.
Oh, well, there you go, so yeah, this is the 6 hours.
Oh,
That's
a
the
third
third
house, so third house is, vacation.
Yeah,
And then for you, it's pulling
So
that
badass.
ass.
So there's no lead
So
in
that's about like, the finer details of coordinating that stuff, and keeping it organized, because you have.
And then there's the little bittersweet.
All trying to post together.
morsels.
So perfect. Say it like-
What's the name of it?
Oh, Laugh on Levitate.
What is that?
Laugh on Levitate.
On and Levitate.
Yeah. That's your, that's gonna be our
Our
podcast.
podcast, we're doing a podcast together.
I love that.
We can. And I got.
She did, that's all you're so.
Okay, so
great.
wait,
It's really-
I'm a photographer, cause I was right for like, when, you know, our podcast.
Or
some next, like, when we put it on, probably like.
One of the two.
Yeah, we had, like, photo,
Um,
and I was like
should,
looking at
it
different
should
ones.
probably feel more like a monetary.
It's been.
Yeah.
You know, just because.
And
Um,
that's kind of what I was thinking, like, it's staring.
and then.
I mean, I don't know, I just got a vision.
Everything back to it.
I don't think I'm going to just.
I can track that.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yes.
And then,
Okay.
Very
Yeah,
talented
sometimes
photographer.
and then money should be there.
I mean, I heard like.
And then,
real estate and
also
stuff, but-
very important.
And those are humans for us, and I got.
Cutting people off.
For my,
But I
my
like the
side,
farm.
mine has
Very
very
much.
like, my appearance to be weird. We're gonna do photos.
That's what I wanna do, I want to be like sitting on like a high top stool or something, that'll be kind of like that, and then I want to Photoshop it out, so I'm hoping it's sitting like that, like levitate. It's like your lap on.
If I did that, I would hang from an umbrella. We could do it well.
Do you know how many fucking problems?
Really, that's what I want to buy, that's like, I want to be a great photo.
I
Yeah.
was like more about hanging from an umbrella.
Umbrella, that would be perfect, you're on the umbrella. and then
In
you're
your
on-
song.
Moving towards something new, even if you don't know what.
Okay,
That's cool.
okay.
That's cool. Very great.
So, and I'm gonna keep these, but it won't be. That's great, but I like. Everybody who's standing, that you're down, it doesn't hurt them.
I like that.
I don't know, I have to.
Or even steel is my absolute favorite.
Then you might, but really,
What
what that could be about them is figuring out how to realign the relationship so that it feels less codependent and so. that
And I would
it's
think
less
that,
conflict.
I like so many, and I've noticed, one of those two, like, very.
That's basically what it is.
I'm teacher.
It's on top.
And I have.
Good job, that was great. I'm gonna stop the recording. And Jane, I am going to share your homework with everyone now, but I'm not gonna record that because the setup is little Jane. If you watch this whole thing, we miss you and we can't wait for you to lead the next session.
To hardcore
That's how I wanna.
acrylic fucking squares that can hold it, but 200 pounds.
That would be cool.